other stations are tuned in too.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast by the host or the guest do not necessarily reflect the views of Paranormal Buzz Radio or its sponsors. Use of any materials produced by Paranormal Buzz Radio without express written consent is strictly prohibited. For information on everything Paranormal Buzz Radio has to offer, visit our website, paranormalbuzzradio.com. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Listener discretion is advised.
Paranormal Buzz Radio is proud to present Girls vs. Ghosts, The Realm Walker with Kelly McCarville, live, only on Spreaker. Every Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 Central, 6 Pacific. And as always, join us in our live interactive chat by going to Spreaker.com or downloading the Spreaker app for your devices. Kelly is a respected paranormal investigator and also a very gifted medium and brings a unique perspective into the paranormal field. Be sure to follow Kelly on all her social media at Facebook, Kelly McCarville Moonspinner, Instagram and Twitter at Moonspinner76, and on the web at mysticalmoonspinner.com.
Hey everybody, happy Wednesday. This is Kelly McCarville Moonspinner, and you are listening to The Realm Walker. Hope you guys are having a wonderful week. We are finally having some nice weather, so I hope everybody's enjoying that. It actually was hot today. It was kind of crazy. Anyways, I am very excited to welcome my guest tonight. This is a location that I have actually been out to a couple times now, and it really just kind of took me by surprise. I know that I didn't know for sure what I was walking into or what to expect, as it is with every new location you're going into, but very pleasantly surprised. So tonight we are welcoming the owner of the location. Her name is Becca, and we are going to be talking about the Haunted Cambre House and Farm. Hey, Becca, how are you tonight?
Good. How are you, Kelly?
I'm doing wonderful. So, yeah. So anybody who keeps track of me on Facebook, you would have seen a go live from this location last Saturday night. And I'm going to just start out with asking Becca, why don't you tell us just a little bit about the Cambre House and Farm?
Well, sure. So, Cambre House and Farm. The house itself was built in 1867 by French Icarian Adolphe Cambre. The Icarians were a group of French immigrants that came to the Nauvoo area to form a communal society. So the communal society lasted for 7 years around Nauvoo, and then even lasted longer in like Corning, Iowa and stuff. But Adolphe was only with the colony for a little while, and then he moved to a farm south of Nauvoo, and finally he bought our property in the early 1860s. The house has been lived in by 4 generations of Cambres, and it was finally sold at auction in 1979. And in 1979, my grandparents both bought the farm. And my grandmother, when she was a child, went out to pick apples there. It was an apple orchard and run as an apple orchard up through the 1940s. And she remembered going there to pick apples, and she just had a lot of good childhood memories from being there. So when that house went up for auction, she talked my grandfather into going out to look at it. And she got out there, and my grandfather fell in love with it. And they bought it. And they never lived in the house. They didn't buy it with the intention of ever living there. Their intentions were to preserve the history of the farm. My grandparents loved history, and they loved antiques. So they treated the house like a giant dollhouse, basically, and they filled it with their antiques, and they preserved the home. My grandmother and grandfather had the house put on the National Register of Historic Places in 1984. It was the first home in Hancock County that was privately owned that was placed on the National Register.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So after my grandparents passed away, my sister and I went together and bought the house. And now I am the owner. So.
And this location has, this is one of the things I think I love about the Cambre houses. I mean, I've talked to you quite a bit even before I came out the first time. And then I've been out there a couple times. And really, guys, the first time I swung out there, I'm like, oh, I'll swing out for a half an hour and see it before we decide if we're going to do an event together. And I was there for like 3 hours, just looking over the place and sitting and talking. But every time I've talked to her, every time I've been out there, I find out more information about this location because there's so much history. And
there is a ton of history, and I have a ton of history on this place. It's amazing.
And that's the part that I was going to say next is, I mean, not only is there a ton of history, but she has it documented. She knows this history. Becca most definitely is one of these people who owns the location because she loves it. And so she has embraced the home, the family, the land, and every time. I mean, even just as you were doing your short introduction there was a couple things I'm like, oh, well, I didn't know that, and I didn't know that. So,
yeah.
So Nauvoo is, for anybody who hasn't ever been there, it is the neatest little town. Even the other time I'd been there, I didn't go into town, but this last time, Chad and I drove down into Nauvoo. They've got it set up like it used to be. If I was understanding from what he said right, like all of the buildings that had been there actually were destroyed or burned down or whatever the case may be, or most of them anyways.
Right.
So a lot of them are reproductions, but it's set up the way that it used to be, and they live that lifestyle, or the people who work in that area represent that lifestyle.
It was brought back to the 1840s. Joseph Smith, the founder of the Latter-day Saints, had his group there in Nauvoo. So the church has taken what they call the flats, which is the part that's closest to the river in Nauvoo, and recreated that back to the 1840s. They've rebuilt the houses that weren't there, and they run like a mission. Their mission for their church is to recreate this town. It's really a neat place.
It really truly is. So then you go from this wonderfully restored town, and you drive through these beautiful little country back roads that they're either beautiful or terrifying, one or the other, because they're dark and twisty and tree covered. And don't ever wander out there with a serial killer; they will never find you. But you go.
We are off in the middle of nowhere.
But that's part of what makes it wonderful. So you go just a little bit outside of town, and all of a sudden you're driving back this long drive, and this quaint little house just appears, and it's this cutest little thing. So when the Cambres first built, so let me back up. Originally when Adolf built there, he built a tinier homestead first, right?
Right. He built a smaller house while he was building the big house.
Just to give them a place to sleep while they...
Yeah, exactly. The apple orchard was already there when they bought the property. And I don't believe that there was a house on it at that time. So he built the smaller house while he was building the big house.
Okay. So then he built the bigger house. The littler one came down, and they had beautiful apple orchards out there. Which there's so many little details to this house that are unique to it. You know, that I know, Becca, you were saying that it's one of the few houses in the area that would have had a full basement to it because of the apples. So
yeah, built in the 1860s, most houses, they didn't put a full basement to it. So our house is really unusual having that full basement.
Yeah, definitely. So the land goes back further than the Cambres and the Cambre House, though. So
Right.
I know we've discussed, without going into too many details, you have historical proof of well back to the Native Americans, correct?
Right. Well, the story goes when I went full on crazy and bought this place, because it was kind of that's how I always describe it. I just went full on crazy and bought the whole farm. And then
literally bought the whole farm.
Bought the whole farm. And I said, well, what on earth did I just do? And although the farm's been in my family my entire life, basically, and they bought it when I was 4, I didn't really pay attention, because you don't pay attention when you're little like that.
Right.
It's just always been there. So I've spent a lot of time going through my grandmother's paperwork. I have a binder that's probably 4 inches thick, full of paperwork.
Mm-hmm.
So as I was going through that, there was this spot where my grandmother talks about these Indian burning pits. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't know anything about Indian burning pits. I never heard anybody talk about this being on the property. And so I have got a picture of my uncle's hat, like in the middle of this circle. And it's a depression in the woods. It's about 20 feet around. And there's like this picture with a hat in the middle of this. And I'm like, well, okay, I've got like 30 acres. So where is this at? And so we spent some time tromping around the woods, just kind of exploring, because this was another thing where we realized we were never allowed to explore in the woods. I mean, there's some ravines on that property, and I can kind of see why we weren't allowed to explore in the woods.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, but we'd never really done any serious exploration. So we did. We tromped around and we found it. And so I'm looking at this depression in the ground, 20 feet around. It's like a perfect circle. And I have no clue what this is. And so I do what anybody else does, and I Google Indian burning pit and find out that basically there is no such thing. There's not really, the Indians kind of cremated their dead in some places, but when they did that, the hole was like the size of a human shape. It wasn't 20.
Right.
That was way too much fire. So then I started Googling, like, okay, well, what other Native American things are in the area? And about 3 miles as the crow flies from us, there is a cemetery called Indian Mound Cemetery. And there are 30 plus Indian mounds at this cemetery. And come to find out, in the early 1800s, all of the Indian mounds in the area were all desecrated, which means that they were dug up by the white settlers, and all the artifacts and bones and stuff were taken out and sold. So I was looking at the pictures of this Indian mound cemetery, and they are depressions in the ground that look exactly like what I am looking at. And so I contacted the local Indian council, and Larry, the leader of the local Indian council, Larry, that cracks me up that his name's Larry, but he's such a nice guy. And he came out and used divining rods to figure out the size of our mound, and found that we actually have 2 mounds back to back. Mm-hmm. And they went through a ceremony and blessed our Indian mounds for us.
And I thoroughly believe those are just the 2 that you know of. I think in the 30 acres, there's more.
Considering that Indian mounds just over the way has like 30 plus.
And they're boom, 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 boom. Yeah, they're right next.
Right. They're all like right next to each other. It's not like we're talking, like one on each point or something like that. This is like 30, like we're all right on top of each other.
So a comment about the Indian Mound Cemetery, guys, just to let you know if you're going to wander off and go explore. It's the coolest little place, but you might want to find a place to park and walk into them. because it's this little itty bitty, barely wide enough for a car road to get back in there. And there are literally mounds off to either side of the road. But as you're driving down this road, you get to this point where there's a big sign in front of you that says, private property, no trespassing, will be prosecuted. And there is no place to turn around. So you have to back out of there, down this itty bitty little rickety road for a ways before you get to the one spot that there is to turn around. Yeah. So heads up, if you guys decide to go back there, when you see the benches, be sure to stop there or just don't drive in at all. Just in case you guys go to exploring, you've been warned.
Right. But Indian Mound Cemetery is a public cemetery, so it's open. You guys can go check it out. It's really, really cool. I highly recommend going there.
A huge thanks to Chad for that little adventure.
Chad is an adventure, I tell you.
No, it was super cool. I was so glad that we went back there, and it's just fascinating. And yeah, but backing up out of there was, thank God for my backup camera is all I can say. So, hey, speak of the devil, and he shows up in chat. All right.
Hi, Chad.
All right, so I want to get to, I am fascinated with the history part of this, and I will keep going back to the history, I'm sure. But, and just to give a shout out to Chad Derry, I guess I've never asked him his last name. Derry. Shout out to Chad Derry that's in chat. He is good friends with Becca, first off, and he's actually been out at the house both times that I've been there as well. And he is part of Augusta Paranormal, correct?
Right.
Okay. Making sure I'm getting this all right. So, great guy, but he knows a lot about the Cambre House as well. So, okay. So I'm going to keep being pulled back to the history, guys, but obviously we talk paranormal. That's what we talk about a lot. So that is one of the original reasons that Becca and I got in touch with each other. She'd reached out to me and just said that she had this location and was curious, my thoughts. I can't even remember what we talked about the first time around, but
I don't really remember, actually.
I don't. It seems like forever ago, but invited me out to come and take a walkthrough of it, and I got a ton of stuff while I was out there walking through. And one of the super neat things about this location is, I mean, just like we've already talked about, there's so many different levels of history of hauntings that are on the grounds, because the Native Americans were speaking to me when I was there. There were tents, which I thought maybe were like little Civil War pup tents, like little individual Civil War pup tents. But actually, this last weekend while we were there, we actually had a history buff that came in, a history buff for that area. And he was saying that it probably wasn't from the, I don't remember what you guys call it, when they came in and shooed out all the Mormons.
The Mormon Wars.
It's just simply called that. So it probably wasn't from the Mormon Wars, but it was probably more from 1812, because your farm was also in a direct path that the troops took for the 1812 war, and that they would have stopped right about in that area for an overnight. So he's wondering if those tents that I saw that I told you about the first time weren't maybe from the 1812 war, because there was too many of them to have been from the Mormon Wars.
Right, and that's entirely possible.
Yeah. So there's 1812, there's Native Americans, I saw stagecoaches while I was out there, and that's all before we get to the Cambre family, who built it in 1860s, you know?
Right,
so,
the stagecoach route ran right through the middle of my property, so, yeah.
Yeah. When I tell you guys that there's ridiculous levels of history for this property, we're not kidding. It's so many things happened. Just to answer a few questions that we've been asked in chat, this location is the Cambre House and Farm, and it's located in Nauvoo, Illinois. Am I saying that right? Nauvoo?
Yeah, Nauvoo. Yeah.
Nauvoo. And I saw another question that I can answer quick. And Darren, I am not ignoring your question. We're going to get there. Mama Pat asked, are there still apples there? Unfortunately, no. Or at least I didn't see any.
I'm going to replant some. There was one tree left in 1979 when my grandparents bought it, but it didn't last very long after that point. So unfortunately, no apples left. I do have a letter from the Cambres. They were writing to a sister, and she lists the different type of apples that were there. So I do have a list of the apples that were grown there, and I'm planning on replanting some.
That would be awesome. It would be so nice, and maybe to figure out, too, where Princess is. Put one by her.
We're working on it.
Yep. Okay. So we're up to 1860s when Adolf and his family buy the farm. You have an extraordinary amount of history about the family as well. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the family that lived there, who they were, and everybody always wants to know, were there any deaths in the home?
Well, I'll give you the creepy version of the Cambre family history because I know that's what you want to hear.
Of course.
So Adolf and Hortense, of course, they lived nice, long, old lives. They both died in the house. Both of their funerals were held in the house. So they had 10 children altogether. Only 4 lived to adulthood. The unusual side of that story is that only 2 died as children. All the rest of them died in like their 20s. So Leona died at 9 months. She is buried on the farm that they lived at south of Nauvoo. And then we're going to hope I'm going with this pronunciation.
I should have told you to grab your history
name. Eglantine. They were twins. So Eglantine and Leona, both the children that died young. So Leona died at 9 months. Eglantine died at 9 years. Eglantine is buried on the farm somewhere. I'm not sure where her grave is at. So those are the 2 youngest. So then we go to Camille. And Camille died when he was around 20. He was floating on a log in the river. Him and the nephew had been swimming in the Mississippi River. And they floated onto a log, and they got in the middle of barge traffic, and they were sucked underneath the barge. The nephew survived, and Camille did not. So there's one. Then one goes out east and dies in a sawmill explosion in his 20s. One goes out west, and he dies in Idaho of compacted bowels. I don't know exactly what that is. I'm guessing it's some sort of illness,
like severe constipation.
I don't know. Sounds bad. And then we had Henrietta, who died in childbirth. So, it just kind of not good things there.
And it is weird history because, it's not unusual for there to maybe be deaths, and especially not deaths of children, because in that day,
there was a lot of disease for children, and honestly, back to see some of the younger children die off kind of young from disease, but you don't really expect them to make it to their 20s and be killed by weird accidents and things. It's just kind of strange.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing, is they are weird accidents. Being pulled under a barge, impacted bowels,
sawmill explosion.
Sawmill explosion. It's the weirdest things. But one of the interesting things that you had known prior to me coming out, obviously, was that Eglantine, or however we think. We say her name, Eglantine or whatever. Yeah. She really needs a nickname. I know. Chad calls her Princess. I put that in chat. With that, or we need to figure out how to say it, just because I feel bad. I slaughter her name all the time.
I'm hoping one day the spirit box is just going to say it right for
right. Her. This is how you say this name. So she died when she was 9, you said. Right. And the majority of the family all are buried in the same location, right?
Yes,
For the most part.
For the most part, except for her twin who's buried south of town, like all of them are buried in the old Nauvoo cemetery. I mean, both parents, all the kids, except for that one, and then there was one that committed suicide, and I'm not sure where he's buried. He committed suicide in the 40s, so he was like in his 60s when he committed suicide. But
so Mama Pat answered, and I'm assuming this isn't to the impacted bowels. She's
right?
saying, yes, that was a thing back in the day before colostomies. So I'm guessing, yes, that means they died of constipation.
Doesn't sound pleasant.
Not at all. So one of the questions that we got was, how did we get the name? So I know that you have a ridiculous amount of historical facts on this, but how did you find out all of the family names, and share with everybody how you're getting some of your current information, because I think that's still fascinating too.
Okay, so the Icarians there's an Icarian society still that is maintained by the children of the Icarian group. So they have at Western Illinois University, they have a special collections, which has an Icarian section. So, and there's a Cambre collection there as well. So I stopped by and I was handed all kinds of stuff. And in amongst all that paperwork was a list that was written by Haunted Cambre, which is Adolph's son. And it lists every person in his family, their family history, where they were born, where they died, what they did. And most of my information comes from that list that's written by Haunted.
And I was able to see that it's very detailed and very, I mean, what an amazing thing to have for the history.
Oh, and incredible. It really is.
Yeah. But the other neat part about that is, I mean, from what I'm gathering from the Cambre family, they were very close, and family was a big deal, and keeping that historical record was a big deal. And I think because of that, you're still able to reach out to different members of the Cambre family and ask questions, right?
Right. I am in touch with some of the Cambre family descendants, and I can ask questions. Sometimes they know more than I do.
At this point, it's got to be getting tough.
It's getting kind of tough. But yeah, sometimes they do. And if I have like a little question about something, I can usually ask, and they can they'll help guide me and stuff. They're really excited that I have the house and I'm preserving it and keeping their family's record alive, you know.
And I was telling Becca when I was out there, it's not just the current Cambre family that's thrilled that she owns the location and is putting so much care into preserving it and bringing life back into the location. It's the entire Cambre family that supports that and wants to help her with that. So on that note, because I keep getting a lot of questions, we should talk about it. I'm assuming with the vast history of the Cambre house and farm, there's probably not a single spirit there, right? I can't even say that with a straight face.
Everybody asks me, they're like, so your house is haunted? I'm like, yeah, kind of.
A little bit. How could it not be? I mean, with that much history, how could it not be? Anyway,
well,
go ahead.
Yeah, exactly.
So tell us about some of the things you guys have experienced out there.
Well, doors open and close a lot.
Yes. Saw that firsthand, you guys. Yes, I did.
Yeah. One of the funniest things that happens out there is they lock and unlock the door. They like me.
Mm-hmm.
So
yes, they do.
When I go out there, and there was one day where I had to pee so bad. By the time I got out there, I was like racing for the door, and the house is supposed to be locked. And not only was the door unlocked, but it was open. And so I race in, go to the bathroom, so excited that, I don't even have to fiddle with the key. I'm in, whoop! And I had somebody out there earlier in the day, and I thought they just left the door open because I knew I was coming. And so I messaged them and I said, hey, thank you so much. I really had to pee. Thanks for leaving the door open for me. And they're like, no, we locked that door. It was locked. I double checked it. And I'm like, well, somebody opened the door.
Somebody knew, and thank you very much.
Right, exactly. But then we've had other times where, like my mom will be out there cleaning and she walks outside, shuts the door, and they lock it behind her and she can't get back in. And I've replaced the locks a couple times now because my key works great. I can open the door every time, but first my mom and dad's key quit. My cousin who cleans for us, her key quit working, and then my sister's key quit working. My key opened the door every time. No one else's key would work. So we replaced the lock and then had the same problem. Where
I'm sure it was a strange coincidence.
Yeah. So that's one. That's happened. We've had a lot of footsteps, lots and lots of footsteps. Things move around sometimes. Not a whole lot of that, but a few times. And we've seen like a lot of shadow shapes around the house and outside in the yard. Tons and tons of shadows in the yard.
That is absolutely one of the fascinating things about this location, guys, is yes, the house has its spirits, but the yard and the land is as active as the house is. Easily as active. There's just nowhere you can go that there's not history and activity. It's wonderful. So who do you think, or who do you know based on some of the investigations that you and Chad and others have done, who do you think is residing at the farm?
I think most of our activity is eglantine, just based on a lot of the activity that we've had, and we've had like confirmation with divining rods, and every time we ask if it's her, she indicates yes. Mm-hmm. One of the first times we were out there investigating, I did a walkthrough, showing Chad around the house, and it was an April day and it was raining outside. So it was one of those days where it has that really cold chill to the air. And I walked through the house with my winter coat on, shivering, and I thought our furnace is done for. I'm going to have to buy a new furnace. This house is an icebox. Oh my gosh. That's all I can think the whole time giving this tour. And so Chad pulled out the temperature gauge to do, check the ambient temperature. And my furnace was set at 60 and the ambient temperature of the house was 58. And I am in my winter coat shivering. Mm-hmm. And so then, as we notice that I'm shivering and our furnace does work, then he checked the temperature around me, and from my waist down directly behind me, I had a cold spot that was 22 degrees at most. It was dropping like into the teens and negatives, and it was the solid spot. And I stayed for part of the investigation that night, and that cold spot stayed with me through most of it. It would go away, it would come back. Sometimes it would be in front of me, sometimes it would be behind me. A lot of times it was just like a little kid does when they hide behind their mom. Mm-hmm. Yep, that's exactly what that little cold spot was doing. So that, and then we have like a lot of activity that's like a little kid playing, Mm-hmm. We'll be investigating downstairs. There's a knock upstairs. Everybody goes upstairs to see what's going on. And then just as soon as we get up there and we're investigating, then the cabinet down below the door slams. And so we all run downstairs, and then repeat ad nauseum.
Right. All right. So we know eglantine, we think, is one of them.
Yeah.
Who else do you think is out there?
Well, we think there's Lewis is out there. And so Lewis is Adolph's grandson. And we had a medium come out, and we've had Kelly come out. And both of them have said that there's a little boy in our house. And I just kept saying, well, I'm looking at this intense 10-page Cambre family history. And I'm like, I just don't see a little boy. I'm just not picturing it. And so last June, I was refreshing myself with Cambre family history before one of our tours, and I found it. There's a little boy. He died at the age of 9, and he's a twin even.
Right.
So and I got all excited, and I'm telling my sister, I'm like, oh my gosh, I think I found it. And I think this is it. And she's like, really? And she's like, what is his name? And I said, well, his name is Lewis. And laying on the table in front of us was an EMF detector that was off. The EMF detector turned itself on and then beeped for a solid minute and a half. Just nothing but beeping in the red. And I'm like, okay, so that's a yes.
Yeah. Well, and it was so confusing because I know when I came out and I was doing my initial walkthrough, I was getting that child and a 9-year-old and playful and running through the house. And I know you were like, yeah, and, but then you got to something, you said something about the little girl. I'm like, no, it's a boy. No, it's a girl. And like, we weren't arguing, but we're kind of arguing back and forth because I'm like, no, it's a boy. He's 9. He's a twin. I swear. And I'm thinking, right. No offense, but I'm thinking, well, maybe the documentation was wrong and Eglantine or whatever is a boy,
Right. No, I have 2 9-year-olds out there.
Exactly.
Yeah. But they're from different eras. Like, Eglantine died in like 1864 and Lewis died in 1917.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But they are both very active, very much so. And he, I think, is a little more shy as far as talking, at least what we were experiencing last Saturday. She loves to communicate. We were out there, guys, and we were upstairs in the upstairs bedrooms, and we were playing with the EMF was sitting out at first, and if anybody who knows me knows that I am one not to just say, oh, everything is something. But you'll have an EMF detector that they've done their walkthrough. They know where the spots are, right? But it'll be sitting doing absolutely nothing and by nobody, and all of a sudden it just starts redlining for over and over and over and solid. And the funny thing is, once you look at it and or start talking about it, it'll usually stop. But then when you get distracted and you guys are just talking amongst yourself again, then it starts going again. But the other neat thing is we had dowsing rods that they were playing with. And when they were playing with the dowsing rods, the EMF detectors were going off with it as well. But then I pulled out my pendulum, and she loved that pendulum. I mean, it was... Yeah.
She was really enjoying that.
Very much so. It was one of those... for anybody who doesn't know what a pendulum is, this one's a crystal on the end of a chain, and it just swings back and forth. And she was swinging it so hard that it would bounce like a swing. Like if you were ever a kid and you swung up too high and it bounces you back down. It was swinging that high and hitting my arm and complete spinning straight out. And it wasn't just me that she'd do that for. We'd give it to somebody else, and it had happened with them. So yeah, we ended up leaving a pendulum there for her to play with, even if I'm not there. So let me see what other questions we have. I know we have some, and I've been trying to... Okay, so I think we addressed who you think the main spirit is at the location. How many spirits total do you think you have at the location?
I have no idea. I know in addition to Eglantine and Lewis, there's a man upstairs. We've had some pictures with him, like looking out the window. I think that might be Adolph. I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, there's the man upstairs. There's a woman occasionally, an older woman. And then A lot of times my grandfather makes an appearance. I haven't really seen too much of him, I don't think, Kelly, but a lot of times my grandfather's there. Once in a blue moon, there'll be just a hint of my grandmother, like a scent or something like that.
Right.
She's not really there very often. It's mainly those, but then like it's the woods. That's a lot of Indian stuff. Who knows? Yep. Lots and lots of shadows. I couldn't begin to tell you.
I don't know that even from the times I've been out there, guys, I don't know that I'd be comfortable trying to put a number on it because it's a lot. Well, and I think I still am telling you that there was somebody who had a baby and got moved from one room to, so I don't know if it was for sure the one. I think you said that the one that actually died in childbirth wasn't at the house though, or was it?
I don't think so. And of course I don't really have too much way of knowing. That's not in that paperwork. It just says that she died in childbirth, so I don't really know for sure exactly where she died at.
Right. And I guess I should clarify as I'm saying the things that I got while I was out there. When I went out the first time, she had told me that she had a farm and that it had a lot of history, but honestly, we didn't talk too much about the history and or the hauntings. So I did try to walk through it blind as much as possible. So a lot of what I'm sharing with you that I felt or I saw is from my initial walkthrough before she shared all of this vast history and information with me. So it was neat to be able to share the feelings and the impressions and things that I was picking up, and then be able to have Becca and Chad back those up with the things that they have seen, the things they have experienced, and the history that they have pulled. So definitely, it was absolutely fun. Pat was wondering, is there any Civil War history to the land?
I don't really have any specific Civil War history. I mean, I know Adolf fought at early 1860s, and the house wasn't finished until 1867. He wasn't in the Civil War. I don't think any of the children were in the Civil War. So,
yeah, I don't know that the only thing that I had gotten that I thought maybe was Civil War was the tents. But now that, right. and when the guy was out there saying that he thought it was 1812, that just felt more
and that's
right.
I was going to say that's entirely possible.
Yeah. So Melissa is saying, with so much history and being on Native American land, I would imagine the energy is amazing. It truly is. I mean, there's so much history and so much energy, and you add to that, and I guess I didn't mention this, but she was saying that she didn't get to wander the grounds a lot because there are areas that are not the safest. There's bluffs. This is built up on top of a bluff overlooking the Mississippi River. So yeah, definitely, if you wander the wrong direction after a very unfortunate and uncomfortable tumble, you're going to land in the river.
Right.
But you also have enough
places that, and that just has a lot of peace to it. It's one thing that everybody comments on when they come is just the peace that you feel when you're out there. And my grandma called it enchanted. When she bought the property, when she was doing her research into it, she went and talked to the people of her generation that had come out there when the Cambres owned it. And she said the most remarkable thing was that every one of them said it felt like it was enchanted out there.
And it really does. Yeah.
Right. And of course it's out there in a little ways off the main road. And she said that it was almost like a Brigadoon type situation because the signs would show up in the fall to go pick apples. And they'd wander their way out there and they'd get their apples, and then the signs would disappear and you could never find it again.
Yeah. I could see that, honestly, because if you get away from the area where the house or the apples would have been, it's woods, guys. It's some pretty thick woods. So, yeah. Your land actually has one other really neat feature to it that if you didn't know it was there, you might not see it. But do you want to tell them what else is on your land?
Sure. I have a natural mineral spring on my property. It's called Mormon Springs, and that water leaches right underneath my house and comes out in the ravine next to it, and it is called Mormon Springs. It's a mineral spring. It's warm all year round. Not hot. It's not a hot spring, but it's a warm spring.
That makes sense because there's some springs that the water's ice cold. So
right, yeah, the water stays unfrozen all year. And I've been told, I don't have the documentation, but I've been told that the Black Hawk considered that mineral spring to be important, that he always stopped there before he went to war.
That'd be cool. One of these days.
Yeah, I'm working on finding the documentation for that. But yeah, it's really cool.
One of these days when I come out, when we don't get distracted by talking, I would love to wander down there and just be close to it. You know, I know that sounds stupid, but I'd love to just get down there and see it and feel it. And just some comments from chat that I wanted to share with you. First off, everybody was saying that the history is amazing. They were saying at one point that it sounded like somebody had been talking in the background and that it was getting louder. But I didn't hear that, so not sure what that was. There was someone I was going to ask you. Where is it? Oh, Melissa was saying when you hear her speak about it, you can feel the energy coming from her. So it's obvious that you love this land and that you love the house and the family.
I do really love this place. It is, like I said, it's been in my family since basically, I remember the day they bought it. I remember my first time going out there, but I was 4. So
yeah,
it's been in my family for a long time.
It's funny though, guys, because when I listen to her talk about the Cambre family, I forget that she's not a Cambre. That's
You're not the only one. Everybody keeps saying, "Oh, you're descendant from the Cambres." Like, no.
But I forget because you talk about them like they're your family, and you love them like they're your family, and I forget, and I have to every once in a while stop and go, well, technically, she's not blood related to them, but you are most definitely their family, most definitely. Sarah had asked if the property is available for private investigations and what's the process for that. And I do know you've been working on getting that all set up and going.
Right. I'm working on that. Process is to contact me, go through me, and we can work something out. So,
absolutely. As always, with any place that I help promote and respect, and I'm not saying this to Sarah because I know she will, but just in general, for anybody who would be listening, this is a very valued property, not just the house and the home, but the land. It deserves a lot of respect. So anybody who is planning on going out to visit the Cambre Farm, the area, or do an investigation there, be mindful of the fact that you are stepping into the past. You are stepping into history that people still live on every single day, not just Becca's family, but her family. I mean, they are her family. Actually, we just talked about that.
It is my family. My grandfather, and of course, I'm pretty protective of the Cambres. Exactly. Not only that, but like I still have all the original hand-blown glass in the windows. The house is really well preserved, and so yeah, it's kind of everybody's like, "Oh, you're going to put that up on VRBO," and I'm like, "No, no,
for multiple reasons. Come and spend the night. You'll get no sleep. Oh, I mean, no.
Yeah. Do you like having the wall pounded on?
Let me share one more thing. Remind me of the wall pounding on because I wanted to ask you a question.
Okay.
But definitely they're saying you get love and peace from you and that it's a beautiful area. And all I was saying, guys, is obviously if you go out, be very respectful of not only the location itself, but the spirits that reside there, and by extension, Becca and her family themselves. Yes, you can go eat at Hotel Nauvoo. It is amazing. Thank you once again, Chad, for feeding me entirely too much food and putting me into a food coma before we had to go out and run an investigation. But it was yummy. Oh my gosh, it was so yummy. Darren, we did address getting to investigate the cemetery. It is a public cemetery I'm assuming you're talking about the Indian Mound Cemetery. Just be mindful of driving back there so you don't get stuck. Okay, so we're getting more questions, but I want to go back to a story, something you said about the pounding on the walls. Made me think of your son.
Yes.
So I won't share too much information about him, only because I know he's a quiet kid and I don't want to invade his privacy.
Right, right.
But her son, who is an adult, has stayed at the house on occasions. And he shared a story with me. Do you think he'd be comfortable if we shared that story?
Yeah, I think so.
I'll let you tell it.
You want me to tell it? Okay. So
we'll tell it together from what I remember of it anyway.
All right. We'll see if I can remember it. Well, he was waiting for a phone call, and like most young kids, he kind of sleeps in a little bit, and it takes him a while to wake up. So he gets this phone call. This phone call wakes him up, and he answers the phone, and he hears the person on the phone, but he also hears another woman's voice. And the other woman's voice is talking, and he can't hardly hear the person who's trying to talk to him on the phone. And he kept saying that when I asked him and quizzed him on what the other woman was saying, he's like, just terrible things, Mom. She just keeps saying terrible things. I'm like, well, what? What kind of terrible things is she saying? And she said, don't you know how my husband died? And just talking about her husband dying and stuff. And he's trying to hear the person on the phone. And of course, he's not awake. And he decides to go outside to get better reception, because that's what you do. And so he walks out of the upstairs bedroom where he was sleeping. And in the main room upstairs, he sees a young girl playing with dolls. And it doesn't really click, but the room's all different. And he assumes that the young girl is my daughter, his sister, playing. And so he goes outside, and he's trying to talk to the woman on the phone, and the other voice keeps getting louder. And finally, whoever it is on the other end of the phone hangs up, and he's still kind of like not awake. And he's looking around, and there was an apple shed there, and that apple shed's gone, and I have a patio there now. But he's seeing the apple shed. He's seeing the grounds look totally different. And he walks back inside, and the inside is completely different. All the furniture is different. And he goes back upstairs, and the little girl is still sitting there playing. And he finally looks at her and realizes that this girl is blonde and his sister is a brunette.
Right.
Besides the fact that his sister isn't supposed to be out there anyway. And so he finally clues in that something's not right here. And he goes to ask the girl, what are you doing here? Who are you? And it snaps on him, and he ends up sitting up in bed and waking up, basically. And then when he went back to check his phone, he didn't have a call. So it was a super cool story. And as I'm listening to him, I'm seeing it as he's describing it, and I know you guys don't know her son, but even though he's a young man, he is not the type to make up stories. For any of you guys who know my oldest, he shook up. This whole thing kind of shook him up.
Yeah.
Even he told my mom and dad about it, and they said he was really shook up about that. I'm like, yeah, he was.
He's an extremely rational kid. He's very calm. He's very not sensationalized. He would very much prefer people don't see him compared to being the person that everybody this is all stuff I picked up from him from meeting him a few times. He's an introvert. I love him to death. He reminds me so much of my oldest son. I just love him to death already. But he's just not a kid to make something up like that. And there was no doubt in his mind what he had seen, what he had been shown. And so I was telling him that's what it's like for me when I go into location and they give me a little glimpse of the past. And for whatever reason, that's what they did, is they showed him this little snip of the past. And I honestly believe it was their way. And this is what I was telling him that night. It was their way of telling him, we accept you. You're part of us now. Not in a scary, creepy, you're going to die way, but as you're our family now. Sorry, that could have totally been taken in a wrong way. But you're part of our family. You're part of us, and welcome to the family. That's probably the easiest way to say it. It was a welcome to the family, right, even though it was a little creepy for him.
Yeah, he was a little shook up. Yeah.
Yeah, but even listening to it again and talking about it, I'm getting the goosebumps again. It's like, it was a phenomenal.
Yeah, it's a really cool story. I'm like, the first thing I said was, okay, so what furniture did they have in the living room?
Of course. And how off am I? What do I need to change to make it look like?
Right?
I know, I was going to ask him those same questions. But I figured, was he really going to look at the wallpaper? I mean, could he tell us what the walls looked like?
No. And of course, we're talking about the kid who didn't realize it wasn't his sister. So not too.
He was tired, Mom.
I know. It takes him a while to wake up.
It was so funny because I didn't even catch it. He's like, there was a little blonde girl in the corner, and I thought, well, what did Mom drop her off here for? I get to watch her, yay, And it didn't dawn on me that he'd said a little blonde girl. His sister's standing there right in front of me. She's not blonde at all. And I'm like, oh, it didn't dawn on me either. So
yeah, he text messages me and he's like, what color is Eglantine's hair? And I'm like, well, Jamie says it's blonde. Why?
Yeah,
what happened?
Is blonde. It is blonde. And but I get where he could have taken a glance at her and thought that it was his sister, because it's about the same length, but it's probably fuller than hers is. And I don't know, maybe just a touch curlier. I don't know how curly her hair, your daughter's, is normally, but anyways.
Not very.
Okay, so we had another question. So I know that you yourself have been out there to investigate a lot, and Chad has been out there to investigate a lot. What are some of the better EVP that you've gotten while you're there?
EVPs?
Mm-hmm.
Our ghosts are smart. Short answer. No, we don't really have a lot of EVPs. I mean, we've heard stuff, but they have not been caught on tape. So I have personally heard a woman singing upstairs. We all heard that. I mean, there was a group of probably about 7 or 8 of us, and we all heard the singing from upstairs. And I thought for sure that would be on tape, and it wasn't. God.
Yeah, we've had that too.
Yeah. So, no, we don't really have EVPs, unfortunately. One of those weird things. My ghosts are smart.
They are smart, though. And I'm not saying that other spirits are not intelligent, but they're very much like I was saying with the K2 meter, that they'll be setting that thing off way into the reds. But the second you pay attention to it, they're like, oh, we're done. We'll wait.
They're looking at me.
It's like a kid who's messing with something they're not supposed to, and as soon as you look at them, they stop. Like, I wasn't doing anything, And then you look away, and they go right back to it.
Right, exactly.
Excellent. With all of the activity that you have at the location, both indoors and outdoors, I could easily see people say, oh, that's got to be terrifying. Have you ever been scared at the location?
No, it's not. I always say it's not that kind of haunted,
right?
It's not like creepy axe murderer haunted. It's like, there's just a sense of peace that you get when you're out there that's hard to describe until you're actually there. It's not like scary haunted. It's like there's more of this loving presence there that, you just feel at peace.
Like being with family that you enjoy,
right.
And comfortable with.
Yeah, exactly. And, I've never had anything out there that scares me. Every once in a while we get startled or something like that, but usually there's nothing that would make me scared.
I'll tell you what scared me the most when I was out there. I've been out there twice, guys, and I can tell you that there was one thing that happened to me that made me jump and make a little bit of a sound. They have, thankfully, installed bathrooms in the house. And I was going into the bathroom downstairs and something grabbed my hair and pulled. And I'm like, oh my God. And I turn around, there's a wreath on the inside of the door and it had one of its little twigs sticking out and it caught my hair as I was walking in. I jumped. I admit it, I jumped. Yeah. So then I laughed and then I had to explain to them that I just got attacked by a wreath and I about wet myself before I got to the bathroom. So anyways, no, it's not at all a scary place. It's weird. It's so peaceful. It's so ridiculously peaceful that I think that's part of the reason I was there for 3 hours that first night is sometimes we'd just be sitting there and I wouldn't be talking. We'd just be sitting there because it's like, I just don't want to leave. I just want to sit here.
Yeah, I know. I was expecting you to come in, walk through the house and say, oh, yeah, boy, it's kind of haunted here. And like, okay, well, I got to go. But yeah, no, 3 hours later.
Yeah.
It's fun, though.
No, and I think still, even at the end of the 3 hours, we both could have sat and talked more, but I need to go home. So, and you had been out there all day, so I'm sure you were ready to go home too. But
yeah.
It was super cool. Do any of your spirits have pet peeves? Like, is there anything that you guys ever do that bug them?
Well, yes. My grandfather's name is Relly. He did not like his name. It's an unusual name. And Chad was making fun of his name. And Relly rhymes with jelly. And Chad was sitting in this chair and he's like sitting there going, we were trying to get some activity going and he's going, really, 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 really. And the chair he was sitting in, there's like 4 or 5 of us sitting there and we're watching as the chair he's sitting in slowly falls over to the ground. And Chad said it felt like somebody grabbed the back of the chair and just pulled it over. And it wasn't like a sudden thing where he was tipped. It was like a slow motion fall over. And then he's like on the ground like a fish, gasping for air. And if you knew Chad, he never stops talking. And he was not talking. He was just kind of sitting there going, and of course we're all laughing at him. But yeah, that's a pet peeve. My grandfather didn't like his name, but
that was too funny. That was what I was thinking of when I was asking that.
I think it was.
Do you ever find like because it's their home, it's their home and. So besides things like them opening doors for you because you have to go potty, there's a little gnat in my house, sorry. Do you ever see them like you'll move something where you want it, they decide they want it someplace else, so they move it back or weird stuff like that?
Kinda. There's sometimes where things just don't fit where they're supposed to, or not so much where they move it on their own, just kind of like little things. There was a time where Chad was sleeping in the upstairs bedroom and he was cold, but like a man, he didn't cover himself up. And when he woke up, yeah, exactly. When he woke up, somebody had taken the blanket and put it over the top of him. and he assumed it was one of us. And of course, none of us went up there after dark. And the blanket that he was covered up with when he showed it to me was the blanket that was underneath. I mean, it wasn't even the blanket that was on top, because he slept like literally on top of like 3 blankets, and it was like 2 down. So, I mean, I have no clue how that blanket got up underneath from Chad, underneath another blanket, and pulled up over the top of him. I have no clue. So,
yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy.
See, I don't know that I necessarily feel like they'd ever do anything that would be almost like it would be respectful that it's your house. It's their house, but they know it's more your house. And part of the reason that I asked this, and actually we got a question in chat about it too, because one of the people listening had asked Sarah, said, have the spirits dictated any house rules? Like Dora doesn't allow swearing. So the gal that's asking that, she's one of the paranormal lead people at a location here in town, and the matriarch of that location does not allow swearing at all, and she will reprimand you if you swear. Trust me, I know.
No, not per se. I will say that they are protective.
Absolutely,
they're very protective of the property and the house. Like I said, they have locked people out. If they decide they don't want them in the house, they will lock them out. They decide they want you in the house, they will open the door for you. Like we had, not only the times I've mentioned, but I had the LP gas guy come out there, and I told him 1:30. He showed up at 1 o'clock, but the house was open for him, so he just went on in and took care of the stuff he needed to inside. And by the time I got there at 1:30, he was already done because the house was open for him. I think Granddad just got excited that, somebody was there to talk to and opened the door and let him on in. I mean,
the man had a job to do. He was just helping him out.
Yeah, exactly. He knew. If he knew Granddad, he would have talked this guy's ear off. And he was probably talking the guy's ear off the whole time he was there taking care of checking on the furnace. So, but yeah, they're very protective of the house and property. So,
I would say, if not so much in the house, because like I said, there is just that level of respect, at least between you guys and the Cambre family. I don't know that they would be as respectful of a stranger coming in and deciding to do things with their home. But I would say, if I was going to tell anybody where there's rules dictated or things that you just need to be extra cautious of, I would say more so the grounds.
I would say yes.
I mean, for obvious reasons, because I know some of the history, but I don't think you'd want to go out there and just start disrespecting the land or randomly digging holes. I think you'd get some weird energy off of that.
Right.
Yeah. Which then my brain went to, well, how's that going to work when you're planting trees? And I got a very quick, but that's okay. So you'll be fine planting your trees, I guess. So you'll have to let me know when you're doing that. I'd love to come out and help you plant.
Yeah, I'll let you know.
All right. Trying to think what else we haven't talked about. There's so much to talk about. So you, besides all the history and the hauntings, you host a ton of other events at this location as well. It seems like you're planning things all the time. What other type of things go on at the Cambre House?
Memorial Day is our big open house. Every Memorial Day on the Monday of Memorial Day weekend, we have an open house, craft show, and that's free and open to the public. It's like I said, we have craft vendors out there and stuff, and I give free tours of the house all day. That's an annual event, and then we host painting parties out there. My mom's an artist. My sister has an art degree, and so we do these painting parties. We're doing a Cézanne and a Monet this year. And we walk you through that step by step. Anybody can do it. So painting parties. And then we do ghost tours too.
At some point, I would like to get out there and host a retreat as well. It will be a smaller number of attendees for the retreat just because the house is a little bit smaller. It's not tiny by any means.
No, it's a good sized house, but like
to have an area to put everybody all together is
right. When I do my ghost tours, I try to limit to 10 people in the tour just because otherwise you're like tripping all over each other. But we've had like family gatherings where we have 20, 30 people in the house. So, I mean, it's one of those type of things.
So for the tours, people can come out and have just a regular tour of the historic property if they want, correct?
Yeah.
And then they can also come out and get a ghost tour.
Right.
So when can they do things like that?
A regular tour, pretty much just hit me up whenever. I usually make arrangements to get out there. I can do evenings, weekends, that sort of thing. And then ghost tours, well, we do ghost tours twice a year. That is midsummer, which just passed, which Kelly was kind enough to come out with too. And then I'll do one in October. It's the weekend of the 26th, Friday and Saturday night. So, and that is like a 2-hour tour.
Every time we say that, we giggle.
I know. So I give like a brief little rundown on, how to use the tools. Chad brings his investigative equipment out there. We have the K2, the EMF, the biting rods, spirit box, temperature gauge, and then get like an hour to go through the house and investigate. And Chad from Augusta Paranormal, the lead investigator there, kind of helps guide you if you're not really sure of how to investigate and you just want to do it. If you're good to go on your own, you go for it. We give as much or as little as you need there. So the 2-hour tour is $20, and then we did the special extended 3-hour tour.
Right.
Yeah, and that was a lot of fun. And so that one's $40. But.
Absolutely. And I would guess, I know right now that she's saying those are the dates that she does that, but I wouldn't be surprised if it continues to pick up and maybe there's a few more opportunities.
It's one of those things. If I'm out there, I don't mind doing it more often. I know our ghosts really like it. They get really excited when they do stuff. I mean, it's like you can feel the energy in the house pick up when they know we're going to do ghost tours because they love it.
Absolutely, they do. They do. They love to entertain.
Yes. Yeah.
Very fun. Very fun. Well, what else have we not talked about? I mean, I know we could talk hours and hours on history. What other cool things about the Cambre House and Farm can you share with us that we haven't talked about?
Let me think. Well, we haven't really talked too much about the house itself.
You should tell them about the door to nowhere, because that was fascinating to me.
Yeah. Adolph Cambre was a cabinet maker, so like all the woodwork in the house is original. The footprint of the house has never been changed. It's never been extensively remodeled. Even when you go up the stairs, it's still the original wooden stairs. You can see where people have worn the treads down. And the upstairs has the original milk paint on the wall. And so then there's the door to nowhere. So upstairs, there's a door that literally leads to nowhere. One incredible first step.
It's a doozy. Yeah. Be careful.
Yeah. And everybody's like, oh, was there a balcony out there? I'm like, no, there was never a balcony, and there was never intended to be a balcony outside that door. Adolph Cambre built like 5 houses in the area, at least. In each of those houses, he had the door to nowhere upstairs, and that was used for ventilation. When you open that door and the window directly across from it, the breeze that comes through is amazing. It keeps that house, it'll feel like it's air conditioned. So there's that, and it's also used for moving furniture in and out of the house because those stairs are super wicked steep.
Oh God, yes. It's hard enough to get your body up and down the stairs. I mean, it's doable. Don't get me wrong, guys. If you're ever out there, you'll make it.
Not like undoable, but it's not something I would want to carry furniture up and down.
No, they're old-fashioned house steps. They wanted the steps to take as little room as possible, and so they're steep little steps for little feet that we no longer have. And
right, exactly. So yeah. Everybody asked about the door upstairs, like every single person.
Well, yeah, it looks like there should be something outside of it, but she's not lying, guys. She opens that door and you can feel all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's so much cooler in here all of a sudden. And but if you are ever out at the house, and especially if you're there at night doing an investigation, do not walk out the door upstairs. That's going to suck. Yeah. But, it's only one story, as I've been informed from Chad, at least you'll live. So, not sure how I want to know how he knows this, but it's only one story. You'll live. It would be interesting to see if somebody truly started heading towards that door like they were going to walk out if the spirits had closed it for them. Anyway, sorry, my brain just went off on a little tangent. So in chat, Darren was mentioning Dead Wave, which was that new program that I tried while we were out there. Right. I did. So when I do my investigations, I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard me say at this point that there is an application that I use that's created by Keith Weldon. There's actually two different ones. One's called Spiritus and one's called Necrophonic. And he actually just, like in the last week or two, put out another one called Dead Wave. And we did give it a try while we were out there, and I think we were hearing some pretty good responses out of it. Right. But it was new. The funny thing, and I don't think I shared this with anybody, but the funny thing is, so we had the Dead Wave on, and there's so many different settings that you can have on it now. So I kept picking up my phone to try out the different settings, and every time I'd pick up my phone, you'd hear through the application, put it down, stop messing, leave it alone. Okay, yes. I'm sorry, I'll just set it back out.
Like literally every time you change the setting, they say, stop it, put it down.
So I just set it back to its normal, and I set it back on the floor, and I left it alone like a good little girl. So, that was too funny, though. I mean, to get that one time I get, but yeah, it was multiple times, guys.
Yeah, it was probably like at least 10 times because you were playing with all the settings on it. And every time you'd play with the setting, they'd say, stop it.
Yeah. Well, they just got used to it, and there I go messing with it. So, but there is a new application out by Keith Weldon. It's called Dead Wave. I've only tried it the one time at the Cambre House. So from what I've seen, I like it, but I'm going to continue to give it another, a better trial than one location, but I have full confidence in Keith's applications because they're good. So, but I'm excited about trying it out some more. We are actually over an hour already. So, yeah, it goes by so fast. Why don't you tell everybody how to get a hold of you, how they can follow the Cambre House?
Right. So, Facebook, it's Cambre House and Farm. CambreHouse.com is the website, and I always message me through Facebook, CambreHouseandFarm@gmail.com, email, and I believe it's Cambre House on Instagram as well.
And as always, if you guys ever have any trouble finding the location or my guest, you're more than welcome to reach out through me. But also, if you go to my page, you're going to see where we were posting the event that happened last weekend. Which
it's spelled Cambre. Cambre.
Correct. That is a good thought. It's up in the title of the thing as well. But we'll just type it again: Cambre House and Farm on Facebook. Yep. Okay. So I am going to go ahead and do just a real quick card drawing before we get to the end here. And I've been shuffling the cards as we've been talking. Sure, I had some influence based off of everything we've been talking about, but I was drawn to the Earth Magic Oracle cards tonight. So I had been shuffling, and we're going to draw a card. This card will be just a general reading for whoever needs to hear this message tonight. If it resonates with you, that is wonderful. If it does not, that's okay. Just let it go. But this is a general reading for people. Okay, so the card that we drew is the Dawn card, and this is talking about new beginnings. And this card is saying, when you witness the initial stages of dawn without the benefit of a clock or other timepiece, for a while you may not be able to discern whether the sky is really lightening. The stars remain visible, and the shadows of the night still shape the landscape. Is that the way? It is that way with any beginnings. It is difficult to tell where the old ends and the new begins. Gradually, however, it becomes clear that to your senses that the light is definitely increasing, and as you continue to observe the world, slowly wakes up, accompanied by all the sounds, smells, and freshness associated with it. Soon the first glimmer of the sun shows. A new day has begun. This is a time to say farewell to the old and honor the new by releasing any self-imposed constraints or resistance to the truth that you know. This is your chance to develop that project you have been thinking about, embark on that adventure that you have dreamed of going on, and take risks in initiating what your intuitive self has been telling you to do. As this prospect becomes increasingly visible and real, doubts and uncertainties may arise. But rest assured, just as dawn inevitably turns into day, by heeding your inner guidance, you will succeed. So I think this message is a general message as well, but if I have to say, I think, Becca, a little bit of this is for you as well. Just to trust the path. Yeah, just a little. Trust the path that you're on right now. Trust the guidance that you're being given. You know, you've got an amazing sense of your own intuition, but you have got your family guiding you, your family that's in spirit guiding you. You've got your extended Cambre family that's guiding you, and the land that's guiding you. This is by no means a small task that you've taken on. Not by any means. This is...
I'm not lying when I'm saying I think we went full on crazy when we did this.
it took some balls, definitely.
Right. But, and then the other question I get is, what? Well, you bought a house. Are you moving into it? Like,
no.
Oh, it's not that kind of house.
Well, and I was trying to go back to read one of the things that I wrote, because I know you're not, I don't think you're watching chat, but we were talking about how you bought the farm, and I had typed in here, I said, it was meant for you. It was absolutely meant for you. It was meant for your grandparents, and by extension for you. So this is not an accident. This is not at all an accident. But it regardless of whether it was meant for you or not, it can still be overwhelming. It's a lot of work, and it's not free. And no, it is not free. So to take on a task like that and love it regardless of whether it has been a struggle or it's been a blessing, and it's been both, definitely trust your gut, trust that guidance, and know that not only do you have spirit, God, whatever you want to call it, in your corner, you've got the spirits of the house that are in your corner, and you are going to draw the right people to you to help advance that as well. And just embrace the things that this is opening up for you, because I think this is good for you. This is a part of you. I don't know how to explain it. As much as everybody else was saying that you can feel her energy when she's talking about the house, I think you get some of your energy from the house as well, and from the land. So
yeah,
definitely keep that connection. Anyways, not saying that message was just for Becca, guys, but I definitely think that there was parts of that was directed at her. So hopefully resonates with other people as well. All right, I'm going to do some quick shout outs. Chat was busy, so if I miss anybody, chat was busy. I meant that in a wonderful way. But if I miss anybody, please don't take offense. Big thank you for listening in tonight to Miss Shay, Darren, Mama Pat, Matt. I'm going to miss somebody. Melissa, Miss Kim Purvis. I think I said Mama Pat, but I can't remember. She'll get a double shout out since she's my mama. Luna. I missed Luna even being in there. I know we had Sarah in there, and of course, Chad with Augusta Paranormal. If you guys are looking for information outside of Becca and all of her vast knowledge, Chad's another wonderful, great resource, and he has his own adventures that he does, so follow him as well. Well, I guess I shouldn't have said that without his permission, but Chad, guess what? I just threw you out there. Augusta Paranormal.
I'm sure Chad's cool with that. Augusta Paranormal. I went to high school with Chad, and he's been a great help to us out there. So
good guy. Okay, keep scrolling through here. Mr. Darren. And Darren, I don't know if you saw my note in chat, but I did answer your questions, but I think it's when your internet went down. So do be sure to listen back, and Becca gave answers to all your questions. So Sarah, and I think I've done everybody. But if I missed anybody, I'm sorry. I'm scrolling super quick here because it's a long list. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for showing up in chat all the time and listening and supporting and giving me the opportunity to help share these wonderful locations that I find. And I didn't find it. She found me. Let's be fair. But I love being able to share places like this and maybe take some place that you hadn't heard of before and say, look at this amazing place that's out there. And guys, it's phenomenal. Nauvoo is just across the border. It's not very far into Illinois. I will tell you all, oh my God, I will tell you all. What is the town you come out of? Mount Pleasant?
Iota.
No, what's the one on the other side of the river? Is that Mount Pleasant?
Fort Madison?
Fort Madison, that's the one. There is a bridge between Fort Madison and Iota. Oh my God, you guys. It is the worst thing in the world. It does not look like it should be a functioning bridge. It is barely wide enough for one car. Yes, two cars can go across there. I mean, it is wide enough for two, but it shouldn't be wide enough for two. It looks like it's about to fall down and you're going to plummet into the Mississippi River. And for any of you guys who know my love of bridges, I hate that damn thing. Hate that damn thing. Do you want to know the worst part about it? You get just a little bit away across it and they stop you because it's a gate bridge. It opens. Oh, yeah, no, it can't just be this rickety-ass bridge that's going to open up and drop you, that could potentially fall apart and drop you into the Mississippi River. No, they open the damn thing on purpose.
Yeah, they got to open it for a barge, and then you could be stuck on the bridge for 10, 15 minutes while the barge goes through.
God, don't tell me that. Oh, God, no. I'm going to have to start driving up and down the river to make sure there are no barges near there before I start crossing that bridge. Because there is no way I'm going to sit there for 15, 20 minutes on that stupid thing. It's going to go down. Okay, anyways.
No, it won't.
So I am panicking going across this bridge anyways. And if you guys know my fear of bridges, you know that I'm like almost in tears going across this bridge. They stop you in the middle of the damn thing to pay a toll. Oh yeah, you have to stop and pay a $2 toll to cross this rickety ass bridge. Okay, sorry. Ranted over about the bridge. I hate that bridge. Oh my God. Anyways, you get across the bridge and you get into Nyota. Is that how you say that? Nyota?
Yeah, Nyota.
It's a cute little town. And then if it's not underwater, you get to take this beautiful little levee road back to the Cambre House. It's so cool. So cool.
Yeah, it's this windy country road that follows the river and goes up in through the hills and on the bluffs. It's a beautiful drive.
It really is so pretty. It is so, so pretty. It's not so pretty right now, though, because it's underwater. So
water's going down, but it's like everything else, flooded.
Yeah, and I'm sure they're going to have to do some check-in to make sure it's sound before they let people back on it. But it is beautiful and it is wonderful. It is creepy as hell driving down it in the middle of the night with the fog, but it's phenomenal. It's amazing. This is the best trip in the world, guys. The trip out there and back is not as fun as being at the house. But it totally leads you up. It's the proper journey to get to the Cambre House. Absolutely. All right. Just a reminder. So Cambre House and Farm on Facebook. This is Miss Becca that we have been talking to. She is one of the amazing owners of the home, her and her family. It was so much fun. I can't thank you enough for reaching out to me and introducing me to your home, and thank you for letting me be a part of that. So, hi, sweetheart.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for coming out. And I obviously love talking about the house and sharing it with everybody. So it's great.
You should, definitely. It's worth talking about. So if you get a chance, guys, please make sure to go out and give us a like on this show. Be sure to go out and show the Cambre House some love. Support them. Watch for their events to go on. Look up Augusta Paranormal and show them some love as well. If I have it my way, you will be seeing more of the Cambre House and the Nauvoo area, because I plan to get back out there at some point. I know at one point I talked to her about maybe coming out and just doing a solo overnight there. Mm-hmm. We'll see how that goes. I think I want to do that, but, you know, I've heard the stories about them knocking on the walls and you waking up in your different time frame. So we'll work ourselves up to this, to be out there completely by myself. It's super calm, it's super peaceful, and it's absolutely comfortable, but I've never been there by myself. So I'm sure it's fine. Your son does it all the time. I'm sure it's fine.
Well, yeah, he's probably like Amelia here, who will only sleep in the middle of the living room floor. So,
yeah,
perfectly good bed, but where do we sleep? In the middle of the living room floor because she's too freaked out to sleep upstairs.
That's all right.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Yeah. Thank you so much for being on the show tonight, and thank you for being on here long. We've been on for about an hour and a half, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. But thank you, and keep watching, guys. I'm sure we'll be hearing more about the Cambre House. Any last words?
No, thank you. Thanks again. It was nice. Thanks for listen to me talk for an hour and a half.
Oh my gosh. I typed in chat. I said, we could talk for hours just about the history and I'd never get bored. Never. I love it. Love it. So once again, everybody, thank you so much for listening tonight. Thank you for being in chat. If you're listening on the playback on one of the many places that this is posted, I appreciate the support and the love and the listens there. Next week, I have no clue where I'm at. What is next week? Is next week going to be July 3rd? Okay. Next week I do not have a show. That's right. Next week I don't have a show. I will be packing to leave on a trip. The following week after that, we will be back in the air, and I'll be announcing what my topic will be for that soon. This coming Friday night, Shay's Paranormal Chat. We will be just Shay and I on the show, and we'll be having some real talk. We're going to start talking about para-unity, but God knows where that conversation is going to go. I'm sure Shay and I, without a squirrel herder, we're going to be all over the place. So definitely tune in Friday night at 7 p.m. Central, which would be 8 p.m. Shay's time, and you guys figure it out from there. 8 p.m. Central time. I can't do Shay. Are you live? Did they hear that? Or do I need to repeat that? Okay. All right, guys. I'm going to let you guys go. Hope you have a wonderful Wednesday night. Thank you for tuning in. Good night, everybody.
Thank you for listening, and for all things Paranormal Buzz Radio related, check out our website at paranormalbuzzradio.com. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter and Instagram.